Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I am excited about today's project. I have an Easter card project for you, and the reason I'm super excited is because I designed and created this layering stencil entirely from scratch, and I'm offering it to you as a freebie if you want to do the same thing. So let's go ahead and dive into this project. So here are the stencils cut out on my Cricut machine out of 12 by 12 scrapbook paper so that they would be exactly 8.5 by 11 to make lining them up easy. So I'm going to line up the first layer of eggs, and you don't have to use both layers, but I like the idea of getting these details. So I'm just going to tack this down a little bit. I do have a craft mat underneath me. I'm going to start inking up my eggs in a light gray color. Later on in the project, I thought my gray was too light, and so I end up re-inking my gray, and it ends up being too dark. Besides that little glitch in the process, I am super happy with how these came out. So I have all my eggs inked, and as you can see, some of them are a little too dark and splotchy. That's okay. I'm still in love with this project. I just know to use a lighter hand next time. And I do have to make a whole variety of these cards for, I'm giving Easter cards to a senior center. So I do need to make a lot, which is why I made this stencil 8.5 by 11. So I can do all my ink blending on one big piece and then cut it down to card size. And as you can see, I've got a variety of colors coming out here from Gina K and from Concord and Ninth. And you can pause the video if you need to see exactly what colors I'm using. But I pull out these colors. I will end up pulling out one more color a little bit later. And then I get to blending color on through these stencils. So I will kind of speed you up a little bit through that process. I'm not going in any particular order with these colors. I'm just kind of picking areas that I think could use that shade, and I realized that my ink pads are a little bit on the dry side, so if I re-ink, this process would go much faster. So I squirt on a little extra ink, swish it into my pad, and then this process definitely gets easier. So nice juicy ink pads are good for this. All right, so with all of that color in place, and I did add an extra shade of blue, here is what my Easter eggs look like. And I am in love with these. I think they are gorgeous. Now, I did miss one egg because my stencil did tear when I was doing the cutting of the stencil on the Cricut. And I will say that this was a long cut because there's lots of little details to this. And having a good sticky mat, not too sticky because then when you remove it, it will tear the details, but a good sticky mat and a sharp blade are going to make the details easier to cut. And of course, you could crop this stencil down to a card front size if you just want a smaller version. You just have to make sure that you crop these stencils so that the patterns still line up. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put some cards together. I've pulled out some tissue paper. I've run it through my really old paper crimper, which I haven't used in probably years. And I thought that would be great for making some Easter grass. And I use my fringe scissors as well, and I think those are from Martha Stewart, and I get myself a pile of Easter grass. I pull out an Easter stamp from an older Tim Holtz greeting set. I've got some vellum here that I'm going to heat emboss on. I've got my Versamark ink for the embossing ink, as well as gold embossing powder. Pardon me. And so I get my greetings set up and heat set so that they have some shimmer and shine to them. And then I'm going to cut that greeting out with a simple punch. This one just has a little bit of a scallop edge to it, a circle punch with a scallop edge. Trimming out the vellum helps the punch to reach better, and I'm just centering that in the areas of my punch. And I've got 4 of those greetings all together. And then I'm just going to use some liquid glue to get these layers adhered down. I'm doing kind of a swirly spiral of glue, and then I'm just going to mush some of that crinkled up Easter grass onto that glue, trimming off anything that's a little rambunctious. And then on the back of my greeting, I'm just going to apply glue to the back of the embossed letters so that you won't see the glue through that. And it really doesn't take too much glue to get this stuff to stick down. Now that Easter grass will have a little bit of lift to it, so your punched shape, there we go, will have a little bit of lift and flop to it, and it'll be a little uneven, but I'm okay with that. I think that adds texture and dimension. And that finishes off the Easter card. So let's take a few close-up pictures of this. And that stencil will be available on my blog over at craftysoup.com/freebies. If you are interested in giving this project a try, just go a little bit lighter-handed with the color that you use for stenciling your egg bases, and I think you will have a gorgeous project. Thanks so much for watching, and I will join you again next week for more videos. Until then, have some crafty days.